last week I did a vineyard run, and I hit most of the Yakima Valley, and I took notes because I especially the growers that have been doing it a long time, I really like to pick their brain and say, hey, how did you see the vintage, the 2018 vintage? Because I have my own ideas about it, kind of where my vantage point was on it. And so I kind of collected a lot of data from growers. So 2018 was, I mean, you could just, as a winemaker grower, by the time we got to the end of the season, I have to assume that in our little world, it must have been what, like maybe the Southern Rhone felt like in 2016, where the grapes tasted just like otherworldly, and the cuvées and the fermentations just tasted like nothing I'd ever seen. And it doesn't mean that's always going to be good, but like the colors were just on fire. I think there was just a lot of buzz in Woodinville. I mean, that's where we make wine, and Walla Walla, I'm sure, as well. But anyhow, what kind of led us to that point in 2018? I was talking with Mike Sauer again on my trip last week at Red Willow Vineyard. He takes meticulous notes during the harvest season. And so I kind of wanted to just capture all that I could from him, especially when it was still a little fresh in his mind. And we had a very dry winter. It did not get particularly cold. I want to say he said 11 degrees Fahrenheit was the coldest it got out at Red Willow, which is a pretty mild winter. And we had kind of almost an average bud break time in 2018. But what made it a little different is this is going to sound strange because people don't usually talk about it, but despite the fact that most of Washington State is on drip irrigation, hydric stress is still actually a pretty big deal for us, because just because we can use drip irrigation to give vines water doesn't mean that if we're low on groundwater, ground moisture, we're still going to feel hydric stress like Burgundy or Bordeaux or some place like that. We might not suffer from it as much, but we will certainly feel it. We'll see it in the vines. The canopies will be lighter. And that is exactly the case in 2018. We went in with having a very dry winter, mild winter, that we had bud break about a normal time period. And it was kind of the opposite of 2016, where it was kind of a steady climb, where it started out kind of cool, got warmer, and then especially Mike showed me his notes of like July 15 through August 31. We had some pretty big heat in there. It wasn't like 2015 where we were breaking 100 degrees, but we did have a lot of stuff get up 97, 98 Fahrenheit. And again, just to give you like the unfiltered deal on Washington 2018, a lot of, I think, picking decisions, not just in Washington, but Oregon as well, were based on, we started getting a little bit of dehydration early in the season. And I think for a lot of us, no matter what part of the world you're making wine in, that's kind of a signal saying, hey, we're going to lose some freshness in the wines. And so strangely, I mean, I think you've probably heard people talking about all kinds of different metrics that they consider when they're trying to decide when to pick grapes. But that was something that we certainly went up against in Washington State, whether you're talking about Cabernet, Merlot, Syrah. But again, almost the opposite of 16, where we started with the slow burn, kind of built up in that last, I guess, the 6 weeks, mid-July through August, the last day of August, it was pretty hot. And then September and October cruised. We cooled down, not dissimilar to 2018. And I think that's what got everybody excited, is we had already had a pretty uneventful season for the most part. In 2018, we had a lot of warmth in that 6 week period. So we had sugar accumulation getting there. Our acidities were already starting to get down there, and then it cooled down. So whenever you have a vintage like that in Washington State, I think you get to see a lot of stylistic diversity, because you could be somebody like, I don't know, Betz family, and we're trying to pick a little bit on the earlier side of the spectrum. Maybe we're trying to pick Cabernet, September 20th. And then you could have some folks that maybe want to pick out October 20th, like Cool Cedar Creek. And I think everybody can kind of get in where they want to fit in that pick schedule, because the weather's good. It's cool. Things are not moving too quickly. Brix is not climbing too quickly. So 2018 did kind of team up to be a pretty special vintage. Yeah.
And that gave you a chance to make wines that are ripe, but at the same time have a lovely freshness and are not dominated just by pure fruit character. They can really tell. They can tell where they're from. Fantastic.
Thank you.